Boots2Roots was formed in 2016 as a nonprofit, and have been working to attract military talent to the state ever since. Do you want to know about how it started?
Sure. Hmm.
Yeah, sure. So actually, the founder transitioned out of the military. He came out of the Air Force in 2014, and he guy's name's Dave Hickey, and he, master's degree, all kinds of executive experience from Maine, and thought, well, I'm going to go back to Maine. It was a kind of a quick transition. I'll go back there with my family, and because of his background and his education and ties to Maine, he thought he would have an easy time finding employment, and that just didn't turn out to be the case. He really struggled, and if you don't have work, you can't buy a house or rent an apartment even. And so, at one point he didn't know where his family was going to end up and how he was going to take care of them. So that was really frustrating to him. And he started to think that if he had those kind of challenges, being from the state and with the type of background that he had, that what about other people who were trying to transition to Maine out of the military? How are they going to be able to make that successful? Particularly if you weren't from the state, how could you ever find success here if you weren't connected? Maine's a small state demographically, and um, it really still matters who you know. And if you're not kind of tied into the network, it's hard to break into it. And Maine employers historically don't have a history of hiring people coming off of active duty because there are no military bases here. There are no established pathways for folks coming up, getting out of the military to find work. And so that's the gap that Boots2Roots, that need that Boots2Roots was trying to fill.
Okay. So tell me how does the program work then? So if you're a transitioning service member.
Sure. So there's two parts to the program. The first is we really try to help you translate your military skills and into experiences that hiring managers are going to understand. And we do that through resume and interview coaching. This, specific to Maine, all of our coaches are here in the state. We're tied into employers here, and we have a good feel for what they're looking for. In our experience, a lot of the transition programs and even some of the large national transition programs that are out there, they are really good at helping you create a resume that will get you hired in a federal contracting job or a government service position, something that's still in the military industrial complex, something that's still associated with the military. But as I said, the employers in Maine largely aren't connected in that way, and so when they look at a resume with a lot of military language in it, they it they can tell that they've done a lot of things, but they don't know how it relates to their business. So that translation is something that we work really hard on. And then the second part of it really is the networking piece, connecting, we call them teammates, our teammates to successful opportunities here in the state. And specifically, we have what we call peer mentors who are veterans who have already been through their own transition and are working successfully in the state. So they're here. And so we put them in touch with them to be able to talk about the job search process and specifics to industry and job opportunities. And then we also work to expose those uh, to our business network of business contacts. We have well over 100 businesses across the state who um, have either hired teammates in the past or are looking to hire teammates as they come to Maine, and so we can put them in touch with those contacts early. And then we have a host of 130 plus folks who have already come through our program, who we use to provide informational interviews and further the network of folks coming out of the military. So that networking piece is very, very important, and I want to stress that. Part of what we do is to try to expose folks coming out of the military to a broad range of opportunities. A lot of times, and I'm certainly guilty of this myself. When I transitioned out of the army, we had a certain background, and so we say, oh well, we have to do something, that's very specific or related to what I was doing in the military, and not understanding that those skills translate to lots of different businesses, and there are a lot the different opportunities out there, especially now with the workforce shortage being as acute as it is. And so we not only are we connecting teammates to business networks, but we're also taking businesses and spotlighting them opportunities to the teammates and letting them know about or getting them to consider different types of opportunities, whether that's in the nonprofit world, different types of businesses or careers that maybe they wouldn't have thought about otherwise.
Mhm. Do you hold events like recruitment fairs or just, just to
Yeah,
start making some of those connections?
yeah, so that's challenging because most of the folks we work with aren't here in the state, right? We start working with them about a year before they transition, and that early connection is really key for us. It's the most important factor on successful transition is starting early in the process to get them networked and do the transition coaching and so forth. But also for a lot of folks, just helping them figure out what they want to do. So we rely on virtual events. We run our own virtual events. And then we also piggyback off of it's even better for us if we can get them tied into the local networking events. It was great, actually, the last 20 months because they've all been virtual. So somebody from, who's living in Hawaii who wants to tie into a networking event here, it's virtual anyway. So they're able to do that. I'm actually going to a networking event tonight that's hosted by Live and Work in Maine and their business partners up in Brunswick. We broadcast that out to our teammates and encourage them that if for those that are here in Maine already, for them to attend those types of events. And if they're not, that but they're close by. Some folks choose to they vacation here or they take trips specifically to do a job search. And we try to encourage them to plan those visits around networking events so they can at least get a couple of those in. And so that's also been successful. And I'm excited to, there's probably a lot of things to talk about, but we recently partnered with Airbnb, for example, and Airbnb is now offered $30,000 in vouchers. Specifically, this is a Maine-only program, and so to Maine from the military to do job search and house hunting, they've put up $30,000 in vouchers specifically for military folks who want to transition to work in Maine. So, that's one way we're trying to get at after the networking and allowing folks to get up here and start to figure out where they want to be and what they want to do.
Mm-hmm. How do you educate employers about your program and the benefits of hiring transitioning military?
So yeah, sure. So going back to events, so we had two partnership building events this year. We did one in Bangor and one in Portland, where we invite business partners and potential partners in a hope to be able to educate them about not only the type of workforce talent that the military has to offer, and folks that are 200,000 military members that transition out of the military every year, but also to expose them to the mission of Boots2Roots and the opportunities we have for them to interact with the military talent and to support the mission. So we've done two of those, but then I'm also out talking to chambers of commerce, and I met with the Human Resources Association of Southern Maine today, earlier on a video call. They were holding an event. We have we did a Maine Biz podcast, and we're featured in the Maine Biz magazine. So it's a full press marketing campaign.
Mm-hmm.
So in person, virtual, print, and other types of media, public service announcements on the radio,
Mm-hmm.
all of those avenues that we pursue.
Mm-hmm. What else should we know about your program? Because you had said go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So our two main goals are to have you hired within 60 days of arrival to the state, and that you stay in your first post-military job for at least 12 months. The 60-day mark is intended to hopefully help you find employment before your transition leave is up. Normally, folks transition with some amount of leave, and so that's why that 60 days comes from. And then, staying 12 months in your first post-military job. If you stay 12 months someplace, you're more likely to stay long term. And so we put that 12-month mark on the wall. We want businesses to. We want the teammates to be happy with where they take their first post-military job, but we also want businesses to find value in hiring military teammates, right? And if that teammate's going to leave after 4 months, that business may be less likely to come back and hire another military member because there's a cost associated with onboarding people, and they need to get value out of their relationship with us. And so we're proud to be 90% have a 90% success rate of helping teammates, number one, find work within 60 days, and number two, stay in their first post-military job for at least 12 months. And again, so we're really proud of those statistics, and that goes back to the comment I made earlier about starting early in the process and getting connected with folks early. The folks that struggle to meet those two goals are normally the ones who get in touch with us, after they've already arrived in the state or a week before they show up, because they're more likely just to go take a job because they have to work, but it's not the right fit for them. So they end up in in a location or in an industry that's not a good fit, and so they're more likely to be moving on quickly.
Right. So you really take the time to work with the service member to
Yes.
figure out what they want
Yep.
to do, and hopefully.
Right, and we're all connected. So our interview coaches and our resume coaches, they're all part of our team, right? So I'm talking to the resume coach, and we're having a conversation about where best to refer that teammate to for networking and job opportunities. And we're after the career coach gets done with their session, we're talking with them to find out what type of industry or business would be a good fit for this person. So it's not like we're farming these things out and it's being done by somebody anonymously or somebody who's not connected to the state. And again, that's what I think really differentiates us from other programs. It's a Maine solution for a Maine problem. Why this is so important in Maine is because demographically we're upside down. We're the oldest state in the nation. We have more people leaving the workforce every year than are entering it. And like the pathway, if you look at the demographic projections, that projection is only going to get worse. 2 years ago, the governor commissioned a panel. They said we're going to have a 75,000 person workforce shortage over 10 years. That was 2 years ago. I think if they did that now, they would. I thought it was low at the time. I think everyone would agree it's low. It's going to continue to be low, and so we're not going to fix the workforce shortage issue from just addressing the workforce population that's here in Maine. We have to go outside the state to address that challenge.
Okay. Anything else we should know, or anything else you'd like to mention?
Well, we've got some great initiatives coming up. I talked to you about the Airbnb initiative. We're also, we're going to try to be much better at being proactive about our attraction efforts. So we had hoped to be doing some of that last year, but COVID kind of dampened that. We just recently, we were just at Fort Drum at a career fair. We hope to do more in-person events across the country. We're partnering with Live and Work in Maine and Northern Light Health specifically to market to the military medical community in San Antonio. All your medical training for the Army, Air Force, and Navy takes place in San Antonio. So all your doctors and nurses are going through that location, and it's got a huge military and veteran population. So we now have a sponsor, and it's tied to a marketing campaign that was already being developed by Live and Work in Maine. So we're really excited about that effort, and we hope to duplicate that, around the country at additional markets, and hopefully get ourselves out as well to let the transitioning military community know about the great opportunities that are here in Maine. I also want to say we're not a recruiter, so we don't charge for our services, right? We're not a headhunter. We're not filling a seat because we're getting paid by an employer. We're a nonprofit. We're in it for best outcomes for teammates, for employers, and ultimately for the state of Maine. So I think that's an important part, because a lot of times what we do sounds a lot like, well, we're a for-profit and we're getting paid to match a person to a seat.
Mhm.
And again, I think that goes back to our metrics that we track. The reason why we've been so successful and folks tend to stay in their jobs for at least 12 months is because we're not just filling a seat because we're that's how we receive our compensation. We don't want to be transactional. We want best outcomes to be what drives our organization.
Mhm. Okay.
And that's important, especially when communicating to the transitioning community, because I think there's a segment of the transitioning community that doesn't like the the thought of having to pay somebody to help them find work, and that we've received that feedback from folks that have done it, and that it's not always been the best experience for them.
Mhm.
And those folks that are getting paid to do that typically don't find you work in Maine, right? If you want to find work in around large military bases or in large military communities like Southern California and around DC and in Texas and Florida, like those pathways exist, right? There are employers lined up to hire folks in those areas, and so your big national organizations are tied into those employers as well, and so if they're it's easy to find work in those places, but if you want to come to Maine, those same pathways don't exist.
Mhm.
They just don't. And again, that's the gap that Boots2Roots is trying to fill.